What up everyone, I am GallantHavoc and welcome back to Studying the Inspiring. And after a good week of consideration, I think we have to change the title because of that acronym. You know what I mean. I'm sure you can tell how suggestive it is. Anyway, so last time we covered Yu-Gi-Oh! Creator and artist Kazuki Takahashi, and I explained how he was responsible for jump-starting my desire to draw in a more anime style. So now I'm going to explain my desire to create comics and who mainly inspired my more darker style. Today we are talking about James O'Barr, the creator of the gothic anti-hero, The Crow. So I've loved comic books from a very young age. I would try and get my hands on whatever comic book I could from local convenience stores or gas stations back when they sold them more frequently. I miss those days. Anyway, even in public school, I would take any graphic novels I could find, some made by Marvel, some made by others, including Bone, and I've mentioned those in one of my previous videos. But it wasn't until high school when I learned of something right up my alley. Something that would change my life forever, and that came in the form of the movie The Crow, starring the late great Brandon Lee, son of martial arts legend Bruce Lee, also one of my biggest inspirations for his outlook on life.
It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.
Now, I've always had an affinity for the darker, edgier stuff, but this took the cake. Murdered man comes back from the dead to get revenge on the people who killed him and his fiancée, and is endowed with nigh immortality? Yes, please. And let's not forget the iconic Harlequin makeup. That's Harlequin, not Harley Quinn. You uncultured. Now imagine my shock when I learned that it was based on a comic book. I knew at that moment I had to find that comic. And come my 17th birthday, it was given to me by my uncle. Trust me, I was jumping like a schoolgirl. And when I read the thing, oh boy, this shit was really dark. Like even darker than the movie. And the artwork was straight up beautiful, even just being black and white. So I looked even more into it and found that there was more than just the graphic novel done by him. I've yet to read the Dead Time comics, but soon I will find them.
It will be mine. Oh yes, it will be mine.
So after reading the book, I knew that this gothic noir-esque style was something I wanted to do. Anyway, let's jump into it, starting with history. James O'Barr's career was tragically started by the death of his girlfriend to a drunk driver. Wow, we're starting off really dark. And as a form of therapy, he began drawing what would eventually become The Crow in 1981. And the process was grueling. Each page, each panel, became more and more self-destructive to O'Barr. And on certain pages, you can tell when. He eventually reached the point where he did not want to continue. But alas, he did, for the memory of his girlfriend. He needed some way to forgive himself for what happened. And that was this very comic. If that's not a tragic story to success, I don't know what is. And as someone who went through a rough breakup around the time I saw the movie, I felt it. A lot. I know it was nothing compared to what he went through, but it helped me out of a dark place too. So the comic was released, and through multiple releases and adaptations, the original has become the most successful independent black and white comic book of all time. So with that history, let's talk about his technique. James O'Barr primarily used pencil, pen, and marker, and the original was drawn on paper. Paper! No computers were used in the original making of the book. Sure, the digital age brought on reprints, but the original material remained the same. He uses monochromatic colors, primarily blacks and whites, using hatching or just complete black to establish shadows. To all those non-art savvy people, hatching is repeatedly using lines to create shading. In the promotional artworks or select covers, some color is used, but it's the blacks and whites where it truly shines. No pun intended. He also primarily uses one source of light in most of his panels, so as to make the shadows really pop, to evoke the dark tone of the entire story, and it really delivers. He also uses bleeds quite a bit. Bleed pages are when little to no panels were used, and the picture bleeds over the live zones of the standard comic page, or rather, the frame. His styling for characters is also quite unique, being not too defined to the standard superhero look, manga style, or cartoony. It's a very different blend of unrefined and realistic, if that makes sense. Also keep in mind, this was his first ever book. Now finally, let's talk about how he inspired me. Having created the Crow character, James O'Barr helped me develop both my art style and my desire to make comics, as well as the extremely dark subject matter. Hell, I even went as the Crow for Halloween 3 times in a row. Mostly because I love the character and look so much, but also because the movie mainly takes place on Halloween, or rather, the day before Halloween, dubbed Devil's Night, in the movie. He also helped my taste in dark humor.
Jesus Christ walks into a hotel. Ow. He hands the innkeeper 3 nails and he asks, "Don't you ever fucking die? You put me up for the night?"
Gets me every time. O'Barr was one of my biggest influences for the noir black and white look, others being Frank Miller and my personal favorite artist of all time, Yoji Shinkawa. The latter two were responsible for my love for isolated color. When I say isolated color, I mean the imagery is mainly black and white, but certain things are colored. Speaking of which, Frank Miller is going to be who's next in Studying the Inspiring. We need to work on that title, so stay tuned for that. So finally, as I did before with Yugi, here's my own incarnation of the Crow. Kind of went for a more modern take, while sticking with the main themes of the original character. Anyway guys, that's it for this episode. Stay tuned for my next actual review, which will be none other than Terminator Dark Fate. And I know, didn't that movie do really bad? Well, I will let you know what I thought of it. In the meantime, I am GallantHavoc, and I will see you in the next one.